Hey y'all, this is Amy with the Dog Guide San Antonio, and I am here with Stephanie Garza, our resident dog trainer here in San Antonio from Pup Up and Away. Today we are talking about dating with dogs. Valentine's Day just happened, and Stephanie and I both have experience with navigating, introducing our dogs to partners, so we thought we'd kind of talk about that and some tips, especially when it comes to training and their behavior, and what we can do to make those not only successful relationships for ourselves, but successful relationships for our pets. So Stephanie, thank you for coming, for being here
Yeah,
and giving us your insight in all of this. I appreciate
always
it.
my pleasure.
Awesome. So we did some polling on Instagram before this broadcast today, and we did get a lot of feedback that a lot of our partners are single and dating with dogs. So
Yeah.
definitely a hot topic. I think a big question that I have is there a right or a wrong time to introduce someone to your dog?
Yeah, luckily introducing your dogs to a potential partner or even just a date is not as big of a deal as introducing to your kids, right? Your dogs have no
Yeah.
idea what your relationship is with someone. It's just like meeting
Yeah.
any other person. So I don't think there really is a right or wrong time. I think actually going on like a date with someone who also is maybe very dog focused as you, as you know, maybe the first, second, or third date or something like that would actually be pretty fun. So even though you don't know if you guys are serious, starting to see if the whole family can be compatible together might play a really big role in your decision to move forward with somebody or not. So I decided to introduce my now boyfriend, my partner now, to my kiddos when we were about, I guess, a month into it. So it was still pretty new. But I knew that, the relationship was, going to go somewhere. So I was like, okay, well, the next test is for you to meet my dogs. Cause if my dogs and you don't get along, then we got an issue.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. So it sounds like kind of the opposite of when you're introducing your partner to kids.
Yeah.
That sooner rather than later is probably a better idea.
Yeah. And just
Um,
to kind of get an idea of what's, if who's going to get along with who's not going to get along well with who. I think it can tell a lot about a person and how they treat an animal. So, I mean,
mhm,
that kind of gives you some information as well as to what kind of a potential partner you have.
for sure, for sure. Okay, along with that same question of timing, um, what's the best time, like in your dog's day, to maybe do this kind of thing? Like when at the
Yeah.
end of the day, when they're exhausted and tired, when they're hungry, when they're well rested. What about tips on all
Yeah. I think that really depends on the dog.
that? Mhm.
Some dogs have a hard time meeting people. And if that's the case, then maybe you do want to wait until you know that this partner might be kind of a serious person to be introducing your dog to. When
Mhm.
I introduced my kiddos to my partner, we didn't do a specific time of day. It was kind of just whatever worked with our schedules.
Yeah.
So I don't really foresee a big, huge factor. Now, maybe if you have like an overactive, hyperactive dog and you're like going to be embarrassed by how he's going to meet your partner and you want to set everything up to be like a little bit smoother, then maybe you want to
Mhm.
do it after a little bit of exercise from your dog. I don't think that really hunger for me, and I know some dogs do get hangry. So if your
Mhm.
dog seems to be hangry, maybe do it after, when they're not starving before a meal, when it's around their typical meal time. So just kind of make everyone as comfortable as possible, I guess. Because for me, and I think for dogs as well, first impressions are a really big deal.
Mhm.
If you don't explain to your partner, like, hey, or your potential partner, hey, my dog has some like fear issues when meeting new people, and set them up for that, then that can
Yeah.
potentially lead your potential partner to be doing X, Y, and Z that might scare your dog, and now your dog's like, you've been a little bit of a creep since the beginning, I don't know about you, and then you have to repair a relationship there.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of people right now have COVID dogs, and that's a big thing. Is
Mhm.
meeting new people has seemed to be something that a lot of our dogs are struggling with,
Mhm.
because of the lack of socialization that we've had for the past 2 years. So now that we're trying to have our dogs meet a bunch of people, that could be a little stressful for them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay. So talking about introducing them, we've talked about timing. What about location? Does it really make a
Yeah.
difference if it's on their home turf, your dog's home turf, or out someplace out and about? What are your
Yeah.
recommendations there?
Also, kind of depends on the dog. I usually think that the majority of dogs would feel more comfortable meeting a person not in the home. And it's not,
Mhm.
I don't, it's really hard to pinpoint why exactly. A lot of people think it's like a territoriality thing, like my dog's protective of
Mhm.
their space. When honestly, the majority of clients that I meet or that I work with, I mean, and maybe I'm a little bit biased when it comes to like my perspective on this because a lot of my clients have dogs that are slightly fearful. And so having a stranger come into the house, unless your dog does well with that, might
Mhm.
once again potentially set up for the interaction to not go so smoothly. So for me and my guys, what we did is we met at a dog park. We went to Phil Hardburger, and because first of all, I am extra. Okay, I don't think that's any secret. Second of all, my dogs are not used to having people come over. We live
Mhm.
in an apartment currently, and like my girlfriends will come over and they still kind of struggle with that just a bit, but I don't have people come over often. And our living situation beforehand for the past 5 years was not one that I would bring people over. So they don't really, my dogs specifically don't do well with people coming over. So that's why I chose to do a different location. One thing that I often have a lot of my clients with fearful dog setups, if you're like, I don't really want to go to a dog park because my dog doesn't do well with something like that. Maybe
Mhm.
your partner isn't like an outdoorsy person, so you don't want to do things like on a hike or something like that. Maybe one thing that you guys can do is have your partner meet you outside with a bag full of treats. You leash up your dog, you walk outside, and you guys go for a really short walk, maybe about half a block or so. And then everyone comes back into the house together. So that's kind
Mhm.
of another way that you can like have best of both worlds. Sometimes
Mhm.
introducing our partners to like our dogs in the backyard kind of also sets them up for a little bit of failure. And I think the reason why is just confined spaces. In the
Yeah.
house, it's a confined space, right? Even though there's many rooms that they can run into, if your dog is nervous, I think that's kind of one thing. And then also the backyard, it's like you encroaching on me and my stuff. Whereas I think when we go on for a walk, two things happen. Number one, our dog is more distracted by so many different things that they can be a little bit more open-minded and not so focused on the fact that there might
Mhm.
be a potentially scary person there. And then two, because there are so many distractions, I think our dogs feel more comfortable because they feel like they're not the center focus of the person's attention as well, because there's just so many things to kind of view and be distracted by. So my personal
Mhm.
favorite is to go somewhere else, let it be but of course if your dog's stressed out by that too, that might not be the best option. So you might want to do something at home.
Yeah. So we're knowing dog and how they react in general, probably to people coming over to your house versus meeting
Yeah.
strangers in
Yeah,
public.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I heard you mention some key things as well. Is leashing them up versus having them off leash a better idea? And or you mentioned that having a bag of treats. So should that new potential partner be feeding them all the treats to kind of win them over as well?
Yeah. So the leash thing, the reason why I mentioned going on leash because you're going out for a walk together.
Yeah.
When my partner met my kiddos, we were at a dog park, so they were off leash. So it really just
Hmm.
kind of depends on the environment and the situation that you're putting them in. Safety first. Treats, I think, are a fantastic way to build a first good impression because I mean, most dogs are food motivated. And
Hmm.
if that's one of their favorite things and you're trying to introduce them to someone and boom, it already starts off on like, oh man, you got lots of really delicious treats in there. It only gets better from there, it's,
Yeah.
it's only good. Whereas if you don't have that, you're starting to have some negative reactions. And once again, I think it depends on how interested you are in this partner. Like for me, I went like
Yeah.
above and beyond to make sure that we had a really nice meeting. And even still, after he came over to my apartment the next couple of times, I was like, I'm going to meet you outside and we're going to walk in together. So for me and my partner, it probably took about 3 or 4 different times. And he would be like, Steph, can I just walk into the apartment? I'm like, no, no, no. You have to meet my dogs outside. Just keep texting me and I'll let you know when it's going to be okay. So, I mean, like I said, I am a little bit extra, but I always paired all those moments, especially the first time, with some treats and just some nice positive interactions that I know that my dogs are in a situation where they're comfortable. I also
Mhm.
really like the idea of the dog park as well, because my dogs were able to interact with him when they wanted to, and then get space from him when they were like, I mean, you're not that cool right now, but my dogs kind of took it on their own terms. Whereas if in your
Yeah.
more close space relation or close spaces, um, your dog might not have the opportunity to get away from that person if they really wanted to, or you might be a little bit more focused. You're trying to like force something in there as well. Is kind of interesting. But if your dog loves treats, have some treats available.
Yes, and some scratches probably don't hurt either.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that you brought that up. Actually, I'm very big into like meeting dogs the right way, and once again, I think it might be my perspective from the types of dogs that I meet and deal with all the time as clients. Um, some dogs, not most dogs, some dogs don't prefer to be pet over the head. So if
Mhm.
you think that you have a dog like that, tell your partner how you think your dog might want to be pet. And usually under the chin or like on the chest is a lot better than over the head. And
Mhm.
so once again, I had to kind of break those things down for my partner and be like, Rishi does not like to be reached over her head. It'll be a negative experience for her. So for you guys, I would like for you to squat down, because he's quite a bit taller than I am. I want you to squat down, don't bend over. Here's some treats, and please pet under. And he's probably like, this girl, oh my God.
A checklist. There you go.
Yes. But I also made it very obvious from the very beginning. He and I met on Bumble, and my profile was me and my dogs. I'm a dog trainer. I own my own dog training business. So he was well prepped to know those things about me before
Yeah,
just throwing him to the wolves.
that's awesome. Love it. Are there any differences in introducing them? You know, you have multiple dogs. I have
Mhm.
multiple dogs. The last time I introduced my dogs to somebody, I only had one dog. So, what are some of the differences or challenges in introducing them to one dog versus multiple dogs?
Yeah, I think once again, it's always the personalities of the dogs.
Mhm.
Rishi, and it's funny, people misunderstand her affection a lot because you've met her. She's very vocal.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when she meets you and it's a time of excitement for her, she has a tendency to bark at you. And it's not an aggressive bark. It's a very jolly, happy-go-lucky bark. But because you're being barked at, a lot of people are like, Rishi, why don't you like me? Rishi, this, that. And I'm like, she does like you, I promise. Like she just needs to get
Mhm.
used, like that's her way of expressing like, I'm excited to meet you, but also like this is a lot of stuff going on for me. So there's like she's just very vocal about just expressing herself that way. Sully, on
Mhm.
the other hand, is extremely reserved. But he also has this thing about feet. So when you walk into the house, unless he knows you really well, he'll like bite at your feet. And
Uh-huh.
so for us, that was something that we had to get over. Rishi warmed up a lot quicker than Sully did, but just because she's more personable and not she lacks personal boundaries, whereas
Mhm.
Sully has a ton of personal boundaries. He'd rather like sit way over there, and that's his way of enjoying your company. So I think it really just depends on your dogs. If your dogs have a tendency to gang up, like they feed off of each other's energy together in a situation, maybe you want to introduce your potential partner one at a time, to
Yeah.
the dogs, especially like if they're coming over to the house for the first time and your dogs have a tendency to like just cause a big ruckus, and it could be too much excitement or anything like that. And especially if your partner isn't really a dog person, right? If
Mhm.
maybe they're not used to animals, maybe they haven't had a dog in a long time or something like that. A lot of what your dogs could be doing as like, the inappropriate naughty behaviors could also maybe potentially set your partner off to be like, oh, I don't know if I like this a whole lot. So there's a lot of things to think about. But I think one at a time, personal preference for your dogs, and realizing that each meeting is its own meeting, right? Don't think, well, that one went great, so this one must go well as well. It really just depends on your dog, especially like for us, Sully's 12, Rishi's 4. So Rishi's a
Mhm.
little bit more manageable. She's a little bit more open minded to meeting new people, where Sully is like old man set in his ways, and he's just like, man, I just kind of would rather not sometimes. And it's just understanding that about him too.
Yeah.
So even now, like, 6 months into it, they're definitely, their interactions with my partner are very different still, just because we have
Yeah.
different personalities.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Okay. So I think kind of the dreaded question, what do we do if our dog doesn't like our potential partner?
Yeah. It's not common, but it happens. So you're not
Yeah.
alone. I have a few different people. And I think once again, it usually stems from the dog's personality. The dog is not very open-minded to meeting a lot of people, so the introductions are always really hard. So
Mhm.
remember, first impressions are really big, so making sure that you're setting those up really well. But there's always some bonding activities that we can definitely consider doing together. So kind of coming up with a list of different things that your dog loves. If your
Mhm.
dog loves walks, like that is their most favorite thing to do. Whenever your partner comes over, meet your partner outside, go for a walk together. Maybe halfway through the walk, try to pass the leash over to your partner and see if they can, kind of go a little bit further without you. Um,
Mhm.
and of course, that might be after some repetitions. One thing that I like to do as well is if your dog is very food motivated, whenever your partner comes over, treat machine. And if it's a fear situation, you don't want to use the treats as coercion, meaning you don't want your partner to be like, well, you have to come up to me to get this treat, right? What I like to do is always toss the treat further than the dog. So that way,
Mhm.
when the dog wants the treat, they go further away from the scary person
Mhm.
to grab the treat, but then they make their own decision to come up closer to initiate, okay, I'll
Yeah.
toss out another treat, right? So when you're using treats, you don't want to use it as coercion or to build stress. You just want to use it as a positive association. But another thing that I like to do as well is if partners are open to preparing meals and food. If your dog loves mealtime, which a lot of dogs do, now let's go ahead and start pairing that person up with those different life events. And typically what I'll have them do as well is when the partner is feeding is the meal gets zhuzhed up in some sort of extra special way. Whether you're putting some fresh fruits and vegetables in there, or you're tossing in some canned food, or you're tossing in some chicken broth or something. So that way your dog's like, "Ah, I really like it when this person feeds me because it's always extra delicious." So finding ways just to build positive association and to never force anything.
Mhm.
Also having an idea of what your dog, once again, their preferences. Do they not like being pet over the top of the head? Do they like tug of war? Just kind of going off of those things and then communicating those to your partner as well. A lot
Mhm.
of the times we have to be an advocate for our dogs to make sure that we're setting up those things correctly. And I think that's another opportunity for you to figure out like how cooperative is your partner. May also be an opportunity for them to realize that you're a little bit of a cuckoo banana pants and that maybe they don't want to do this much. So for me, like I set up that stage. I was like, look, Sully has a foot thing. He likes to bite feet. Rishi's gonna bark. But these are the right ways to set that up. And if your partner's cooperative, it won't take very long for your dog to get used to that.
Yeah.
Other things that you might want to consider, especially if your dog is kind of a nervous Nelly, is maybe doing some sort of situational like calming aids. And I think we probably talked about some of those in previous Facebook Lives together. But trying to reduce that anxiety from your dog beforehand, take the edge off before
Mhm.
meeting your person, might be a way just to kind of make sure that things roll a little bit more smoothly. So my most favorite situational one is something called Rescue Remedy.
Mhm.
There's a formula for people, and then there's a formula for dogs, cats, and horses. So make sure you get the one for animals. But it's just a liquid drop that you'd put in your pup's mouth, maybe about 15 minutes, 20 minutes before the interaction,
Mhm.
just to kind of take the edge off of what that experience might be like for your dog.
Awesome. Love that. I especially love the tip that you mentioned a little bit earlier on tossing the treats further away from them so they have that decision
Yeah.
being kind of forced to come closer. That's a really
Yeah.
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 I might use that on my brother's dog. He still gets shy around me at times.
Does he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Meeting people could be very interesting. And I think just one other thing that I want to point out when meeting people, let the dog make all the interactions, let your dog make all the
Mhm.
decisions, and kind of like interpret your dog's body language for your partner.
Yeah.
I'll usually tell people to tell their potential, like, visitors or whatever, don't touch my dog until I tell you to touch my dog, until I tell you it's okay.
Mhm.
Because the one time that people often think that, oh, okay, like it's a done deal, the dog finally comes up to the person, they're sniffing. But if you were to actually look at the dog, they have like this long neck and they're trying to sniff, but the rest of their body is kept really far backward. That's your dog saying, I'm interested and I'm finally comfortable enough to get close enough to you to gain some information, but I'm ready to flee the second that you make the wrong move. So not until the dog is actually like completely walking up to the person is when I'll tell my clients, like, that's the green light for your person to now start scratching underneath the chin.
Mhm. Love it. Awesome. Okay, I think another question that we'll probably wrap up with, but might be a bit of a conversation as well. What about introducing them to your partner's pets? That's like a whole nother ball game there, right? Especially if they're a different kind of pet, like a cat versus dog. So, what are your best tips for introducing and intermingling pets?
Yeah, the interspecies one is a very interesting one because if you if my potential partner had a cat, I knew that it probably wouldn't be a very good deal. um, or I would have to delay that process while I trained my dogs to be prepared for
Mhm.
that. My dogs have
Mhm.
never encountered a cat. Every time they see a cat on a walk, they bark at it. Like, I know if I were to put
Mhm.
them in close quarters with the cat, someone's gonna get swiped, someone's gonna get feelings hurt. Like, it wouldn't be a good deal. But being honest about
Mhm.
what kind of dog you have, what kind of other interactions with other animals are they going to have, and once
Mhm.
again, not setting anyone up for that potential failure. Um, and then even if it's like a dog cat situation, you want the cat to also feel comfortable too. You don't want your partner's cat to be miserable every time you and your dogs come over.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts there in that one. So once again, I think a lot of the things are kind of the same. Introduction's always key. Doing it in as stress free of an environment as possible. That one's trickier with cats because you can't take dogs or cats to the dog park and, let's have this nice meeting outside. That one's a little bit trickier. Maybe if you're
Mhm.
introducing your dog to a partner with a cat, doing so on leash, maybe first at a bit of a distance and not get closer until your dog has proven that they can handle getting closer.
Yeah.
And you're utilizing the leash. That way your dog just can't bombard the cat. And also when you start to feel like your dog's having some negative reactions, you can, all right, dude, let's go ahead and walk on this way. So it kind of helps you have more physical control in that moment. Pairing lots of treats into that moment as well, whatever's going to motivate your dog and also the cat. So have your partner be there next to their cat, giving love and treats and making it be a positive experience for the cat as well. A rock solid leave it to teach is going to be really good. So in preparation of that, maybe you start working on some leave it exercises to teach your dog to disengage from certain things that they may want to chase or be active with. Dog and cat and dog relationships are a thing, I know I have plenty of clients with interspecies households.
Mhm.
But I also know that it can be a little tricky to introduce. If dog stuff, once again, try going out for a walk together. If your dog is leash reactive and already throwing a big hoopla, just from across the street, maybe that's not the best idea for you guys. Maybe doing things in a dog park setting if both dogs are very dog friendly and open minded to going to dog parks might be another way for you guys to do that. Uh, Finding another, when we're bringing dogs into situations, excuse me, that is definitely when I like to take things out of the household because, excuse me, one dog is already established there.
Mhm.
And so they might be having very certain feelings, but hey, that's mine. Hey, that's mine. Hey, that's mine. And not that it's ugly or dominant, but just like,
Yeah.
I don't like people coming into my office and touching all my things.
Mhm.
And for the other dog, there's just so much to explore in the environment that it's hard to do that, get comfortable with the environment while there's another dog kind of telling you like, hey, buzz off.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're having like one introduction at a time. Are you introducing your partner's dog to your dog or to the house? Two
Mhm.
different things. And the one that's always easiest to do is the dog. But there's lots of different, I mean, I feel like our city is definitely becoming more like dog social. And so finding fun things to do with each other and your dogs together, going for hikes, going and sitting in a restaurant patio bar, doing things short and sweet. And I think that when you're having that interaction, your focus should be on the dogs, right? Your focus shouldn't be like, oh, we're gonna have a fantastic date together and the dogs are just a side note. Like you should
Mhm.
definitely be using that as a training situation and a training scenario where that's your focus on building familiarity with one another and making sure that all of those things are going really positive for everyone. And maybe you have the idea that it's going to be a short date or a short interaction. You don't want to wait for something to get hairy and negative
Mhm.
before you end the reaction, or excuse me, end the interaction. But maybe your date is like, let's go just have like one drink. You take treats, I take treats, and we're going to sit down and you're going to be on that side and we're just going to build lots of positive associations and we're here for 20 minutes and that's it. There's a lot of beauty in doing things with quality and short and frequent
Mhm.
versus we'll go for a really long time and then someone gets stressed out at some point in the moment. And I think the natural calming remedies are going to be a great idea for those moments as well.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, I remember you when I was working with you for terrier training, and you always recommend like ending the training on a positive note. And so
Hmm.
don't wait till it unravels. So it sounds
Yeah.
like a good thing when introducing them to other dogs and friends, partners, dates, all good stuff. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think that's a wealth of information there for us
Yeah.
navigating, introducing our dogs to dates and people and friends. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. If you're looking for dog-friendly places to take a date to, stay tuned. We have a new directory launching on the website, thedogguidesa.com. And be sure, Stephanie, where can people find you online? What do you have going on?
Yeah, we have social media, Instagram, Facebook. We have a TikTok, but it's not that great. And then, of course, our website, puppupandawaysa.com.
Awesome. And you mentioned earlier to me that you have an online workshop or something coming up. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So for those of you guys who've already found your potential partner and you guys are having a baby, we're having a long, so I know first offshoot off that one. But we are having an Along Comes Baby webinar. The first series is tonight. So it's a two-part series. What we're doing is we're breaking down per trimester different things to do with your dog to prep them for when baby arrives. So the first one's tonight. We're covering trimester 1, trimester 2. The second part is next Tuesday when we're covering the third trimester and actually bringing home baby. So you can sign up for one, you can sign up for both. If you're interested, there's a little bit of information on our Instagram story. But if you want to just call us and ask us questions and get signed up, you can call us at 210-899-1688. And it's a Zoom thing. So anyone that you know, you don't have to be in San Antonio. It could be someone in a different state, a different city. And we're just going to have a nice, fun chat about potentially getting your dog ready to meet another potential life partner, their brother and sister.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So be sure to check that out. Visit thedogguidesa.com for more dog-friendly fun here in San Antonio. And stay tuned for next time when we talk with Stephanie. Thanks, y'all.